and welcome to the first episode of Yoga Truth. I am your host, Bethany Vaughn, and I'm here today with Elizabeth Connolly, Adriana Medico, Jamila Bellew, and Vika Telichko. So say hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, world. Today, for our first episode of Yoga Truth, we are going to be discussing anxiety and how we use yoga to help deal with it and manage the stress of being anxious, all the way to anxiety disorder, panic attacks, all kinds of different things that come up when we tend to be a little on the anxious side. So I think it's a good topic to start off with. I think it's one that we are pretty well versed with personally as well as professionally. So one of the most unique things about Yoga Truth is that everyone who is here is a yoga instructor. And everyone who is here is very comfortable speaking the truth, and specifically their truth, because one of the most important aspects of teaching other people is that you have gone through the process and continue to go through the process of learning to be truthful with yourself. Because how can you teach anyone anything if you're not true and genuine with yourself?
Just got this one, Satya.
Oh, you got Satya.
Uh-huh.
You want to talk about what that means?
It means truth in mind, in speech, and in heart.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
As far as like that timing, was that just coincidence?
It's brand new.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
So one of the things in yoga that is the most important is the truth. There's many different aspects, obviously, to yoga. A lot of people just think it's the physical, practice of yoga, doing the poses. It is not. It is that's one aspect of it, and what Adriana is referring to is one of the most important things that you take on when you decide that you are going to study yoga and then in turn teach yoga, is that you are truthful, but not just in, oh, I told the truth about this or that. But will you expand a little bit on that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it embodies honesty, and it not only, like you were saying, embodies truth in in what you're communicating, but it's in what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and then in turn your actions then will essentially are indicative of the truth as well. So I can tell you, I can be honest with you verbally, but if I don't feel it in my heart, then essentially it's dishonest coming out of my mouth, right? So your truth, you essentially honesty and truth in your thoughts, in your speech, and in your heart, and what you feel. And it's one of our limbs of yoga. So it's something that we study in yoga, and something that I've worked into every aspect of my being, or I try to.
And oftentimes the truth is one of the most difficult things to face, because sometimes truthful doesn't necessarily mean that we like it, or that it's what we want it to be, as far as what it looks like from the outside looking in, we have to make decisions that are based in truth, not necessarily in what a societal norm would be.
I was just going to say that, or it's sometimes it's not societally acceptable, right? But it's like that's what's true for me, and got to constantly remind yourself of that. I think
it can be very lonely telling the truth.
And it can be also not only societal and the fear to misfit, but it's also how you were programmed, right, by the family and society, and at the end you have to break that wall inside of in you as well, and not be afraid to accept yourself, not to separate, like, okay, so I'm told to do this and I'm a good girl if I'm doing this, and
Yeah.
I act this way, you know what I mean? I meet all the expectations, I'm a good girl, so everybody's happy. I mean, that's, and that wall gets thicker and thicker, and I think that's, all this stuff comes up when you start breaking that wall and you start realizing, like, okay, so that's, there is something much deeper.
Start being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very scary because you dig and a lot of stuff is coming up and then you are terrified and then the anxiety.
Exactly. It's a perfect segue into that.
Totally.
That is I was just thinking that. I was like, this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
This is the stuff that causes a lot of anxiety, is actually having, first and foremost, the courage to go down that path of seeing yourself for who you really are, what you really think, what you really want in your life, and how that very often conflicts with everything you've been taught, and to a very large degree, what you even believed about yourself until maybe you started practicing yoga. So I think that that's kind of an interesting thing to touch on as well. And I would like to do that, because what brings people to the mat a lot of times is the fact that they're uncomfortable or anxious or worried or stressed. That was for me why I got on the mat the very first time. You too. And so, I think that that would be kind of nice for people to know. Like, do you remember, or no, you probably do, what brought you to the mat? Was it, physical, or was it more emotional?
Yeah.
It was definitely emotional. I mean, I remember, I had always practiced yoga. I dabbled in yoga is probably the best way to describe it. But I remember the moment, and it was probably 6 years ago. I remember the moment that I started showing up to my mat, and I didn't know why I was showing up to my mat, but life around me was like a dumpster fire, and anxiety was way up here, and I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel secure. I just felt like the world, like the ground underneath me was just shaking. But when I came to yoga class, I showed up to my mat. I just remember it helped ease, like brought some ease to me. And I just didn't know why. It was just like, I don't know what it is. But it's working. I'm here.
There's that Sthira is with steadiness and ease. And although when people first start practicing yoga, they are like, liar, this is not steady, this is not easy, this is like not relaxing, this is a nightmare. But what you realize over time is that the tumultuous feelings that you had, that shakiness and all, you came in with that. Now, some of us know that when we first get on the mat, we don't even know why we're on the mat, but we're there. We can feel it, we admit that it's ours. But you notice right away the yoga starts working. It starts working and alleviating that sort of like crazy feeling of unsteadiness that you described it best when you were like, everything was like a dumpster fire.
Yeah. When I first started to practice yoga, it was probably around, like, I don't know, 2010, 2011. And I remember being so in awe of the fact that I just didn't speak for 90 minutes. That like I could just simply be quiet for 90 minutes and focus on myself and nobody else. Right? And I think because I was a dancer, I was immediately drawn to the movement and the music. So I think that's why I thought initially, oh, this is fun. I could keep doing this, and I think I'm good at it. Then I realized, girl, you got work to do. But but initially it was like, I can just be quiet for 90 minutes. Okay, like I can do this thing. And then
did anyone else encounter that quietness?
Yeah, similarly, I really appreciated the peacefulness and the quiet to it. I mean, I practiced on and off for 15 years, and I went through a little phase where I got really into Zumba and hip hop dancing and all of those fun classes with the loud music, and I just loved it. And then I hit a time in my life where I was, going through a loss, and it was too much. There was too much going on in my career, in my personal life, with some aging parents, and I didn't want to be screamed at. I didn't want to hear the loud boom boom music. I just wanted to get my workout in, but still have a sense of peace and feel stronger, and have an intention behind it all. And so
Yeah.
that's what I really began to gravitate toward.
So interesting.
Because it's a that's really very interesting the way that you put that, because
Mhm.
there comes a point, I think, for many people, and I don't think it's an age. I think it's just a turning point in the mind, where you care about yourself enough that you don't want to feel upset anymore, and you don't get the same things out of, just a workout that you do out of practicing yoga.
Mhm.
You just can't. It's not the same.
Nope.
And there's a reason why, because it's specifically designed, towards integration ultimately. That's a whole nother podcast, but the point is that, or maybe 12 or 100 of them, but the point is that working out is just physical, and a lot of the times it's very anxiety oriented in and of itself, because you're not going fast enough, you're not, building muscle the right way, you're not eating the right way, you're
Where are you going to go? Where are you going to get to? Like
yeah,
constantly thinking about more, more, more.
instead of being where you're at and then loving yourself enough to say, what do I need?
Mhm.
What would feel good? I think yoga does that for people when they first, and a lot of people run away from it. They get on the mat, and after, on average, about 2 years, they're like, it's too much for me because I have to face things I don't want to.
Yeah, but it's also, I wanna just add about the physical. So, I mean, hearing your beautiful stories, ladies, about like emotionally feeling, overwhelmed and wanting something. For me, I came to yoga absolutely not. It wasn't like a conscious decision. I was told by the doctor, you can't run 8 miles a day every day anymore. You need to find something else. Find yoga. And I was like, yoga? So I came already with
Some
the
honesty for you.
Oh my God. I could like see you saying that too.
I
Like,
can see
what?
that too.
yeah, I was completely, I mean, I was devastated. He was, seriously, he was talking to, he was like, it's not the end of the world. Calm down.
Yeah.
You need to find something that is not as strenuous because it's, elevating, whatever. So I was like, okay. So, and I came with an attitude like, yogis, like, and especially with this trend now, it's an industry now. So I was all against that as well, because I'm very opinionated. Oh, I'm working on that. But I came with an opinion like, I don't belong here, but I was willing to try because I was made to try something.
Yeah.
And for me, for a long time, it was physical. So even depending on your intention, you can kill yourself even practicing yoga,
Oh, sure.
over practicing,
Absolutely. The choice.
injuries, right? So I found a hard one, 90 minutes to kill myself on a mat. However, after a couple of years, what you said, like people just leave. I hit that point, like that turning point when it transformed for me into something else. I've been ignoring it for 2 years because I stuck to it. I was like, okay, intuitively, I was like, I need to do that. I don't know why. I just need to do that. I need to practice. So it gradually transformed into something else for me than, just physical exercise. And after 2 years, I think it was like 2 years. I was like, okay, I need to admit something's going on the mat, something's deeper. And I was scared to death to find out, what we just said, to dig and to, like unlayer. So, and then, the actual work started when I stopped ignoring and physical turn. So it's going to take you to the point where you're like, okay, either I go with the physical and just leave it, or I
Yeah.
have to, I have
And
to.
good for you for listening to your intuition like that
It was
and being
screaming.
able to stay there. And because I think that's part of it, B, is like people get to a point with this practice where they have to really start looking at their stuff. And that's scary. It's scary when you have to look at the truth and you have to look at what's actually going on, because then that's a lot of times where the anxiety comes from. And anxiety, I like to think of it as anxiety lives in the future, depression lives in the past, and what's right here is the present. And what
Yeah.
does yoga do for us? It makes us present,
Present.
and it puts us in our body, and it puts us right here in the present moment with what's actually going on. And if you're truly committed to that practice and you're truly committed to your body, getting in your body, getting out of your head, you're gonna get out of that anxious cycle and that loop,
Yeah.
I think
right?
that's the physicality of it, which is interesting, is not so that you quote unquote look good. Okay. That's
No.
like a side effect anyways. Like, I mean, and look, age is age. Okay. So like if you
Yeah,
practice yoga and you're in your 20s, you're probably going to look pretty good because you're in your 20s. Okay. And
exactly.
it just goes on. And like, believe me, the aging process also does occur. However, you're really, really in shape, 40s, 50s. It's definitely incredibly beneficial in that sense, right? And so those are the two things that are recommended as far as if you are going to practice yoga and you're not really into the philosophical aspect of it. Physically, you should do the poses and you should do pranayama, and it will actually keep your body and your mind very, very healthy, relatively speaking, with the mind. But the benefits are just unparalleled. They're just
Hmm.
incredible. Um, so I told you that, and you all know that story about the teacher that said, you beautiful girls in your 20s with their long legs and everything else, and you can do every single pose. She said, get your mind right. So I took that to heart, and I was
Hmm.
like, okay, there's a lot to this, there's a lot
Yeah.
to this practice.
You
Um,
said you said to us once in class B, and I say this to my students all the time now too, you discipline the body, the mind will follow suit.
yes, and listen to your
Like,
body. Your body holds a lot
yeah,
of intelligence, and
so
we
much
always see
information.
it like it's this thing that is like, we can just manipulate it to look a way that we want it to look. I'm like, actually, you're a whole person that includes your whole body and your mind, and your spirit. So
Yeah,
want to, include the whole being.
body.
Or,
Yeah,
Yeah.
practicing
the whole being. Yeah,
life.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
including your
there is an
mind.
inner intelligence, and once you connect to it, even briefly, then you
Yeah.
have to connect to that, and that is going to manage everything. You don't have to do anything. It's already there. You just need to connect to that, and it's there for you to do the work.
And this is where effortless ease comes in. All of these
I
things.
was gonna say, what
We
law does that remind you of?
work really, really, really hard to get to
Yeah.
this point where it becomes effortless. It's like,
Yeah.
Yep.
oh, it was
Yeah.
worth it because now I understand things and I can do
Yes.
things, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Mhm.
Yeah.
we've
And
a really nice overview of like all of these great benefits that we experience from yoga, why we came to the mat. I love what you said, Adriana, about the depression is in the past and the anxiety is in the future, and then we are here right now. And that's really, everybody knows that's really all there is
yeah.
this moment. But a lot of these catchphrases, they become these, memes and all of these things that people put up on Facebook, etc. There's a lot to them, and they're not just, trivial little things that people say. But getting into the depth of what they mean, being present is very challenging, but it is the key to not being anxious.
Anxious.
So and so that's really important.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Being
Absolutely.
It's so
that was.
interesting
But
that so like the physical practice is what brought me to yoga to help with anxiety. So it was the asana, but once you tap into, realizing that's just the 1/8 of yoga, and you tap into the other facets, focusing on self-study and meditation, and I actually brought it with me, like we're here because I just wanted to share like one thing. The world all thinks like, oh, yoga, the physical practice. I actually, for me personally, for anxiety, I find that the focusing on the present and the way I do that is through meditation. And I started journaling. So I kind of also call that part of my self-study practice. And
Totally.
I feel like my little journaling book that I
Yeah.
use to help me focus on this present moment, because realizing that is all we can have control of, this very second. And once that second goes, that's all I can control, is being present in that moment
Hmm.
and helping your mind and helping your body physically be self-aware and present in that moment is actually very challenging. And it's taken, a long time to figure. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still learning. I'm like a lifelong student. But when it comes to like yoga and anxiety, I always want to share with people is, remember, the physical practice is beautiful. It's there. Once you tap into like what Victoria says, like once you tap into the other pieces of yoga and you start to peel the onion back and peel back layers and dive deeper, it's really so powerful and so amazing and so freeing. Oh my gosh. So
Hmm.
Really glad you brought up that word of freedom, because that is for me the anxiety that I really sort of had to meditate on this. I do a lot of walking meditation. So I meditate where I sit. I'll, of course. But I find that a lot of my most profound breakthroughs happen when I just let something that I'm working on and trying to understand just percolate in my
mm,
mind and in my body. And I just let myself, sometimes for years, sometimes for days, it just depends. I knew this was coming up. And so I really had to ask myself, I can tell you all the times I've been anxious. Well, no, probably not all of them, but, there's a lot. But what is that underlying cause of what makes me anxious? And it is the control of someone or something over me.
Hmm.
If
And
I
eight.
don't have freedom, then I become extremely anxious.
Hmm.
And so, as an adult, I obviously have freedom because I can think anything I want. I can, be in any, mode of being that I need to be in. But like when you're very young, if that's taken away from you or it's exploited, that's something
Yeah.
that you carry with you for a lifetime. So that was what I had to recognize, that my underlying, you know, fear of losing freedom is what causes me the most anxiety. And it's really deep, like
Yeah.
extremely, like in my bones. Do you all have?
That's so interesting. And that, because I think I know you so well, that makes so much sense to me. Now I'm not sure that I can relate to the freedom thing with the specific trigger
Mhm.
with anxiety. For me, it could be many different things. That when I was thinking about this a lot, the underlying theme for me um, is, like I mentioned earlier, either the hypothetical or something that I'm anticipating happening,
Mhm.
or whether it could have to do with lack of freedom or fear or judgment or shame or something that
All
actually
of those
hasn't
contribute.
all of the things, right? But the commonality there for me is, in the future hasn't happened yet, so you have no control over it, sort of
yeah.
thing. And then
Is
when I
there?
relate it
Oh
back
no.
to my practice, it's like you think about all the work you've done in your practice and in yoga and what that's teaching you. It's teaching you to be present and to stay in the present moment and alchemize your mind and your body. And that happens right here, right now. It doesn't happen in the future, and it doesn't happen, it's already happened in the past, or maybe it hasn't, depending on what time we're thinking of. But I I actually I can really, I think, in some aspects of my life, to the lack of freedom thing, but I think the underlying theme for me is hypothetical. It's
what
like
if,
hasn't happened yet.
or what is going to happen,
Or the unknown. Yeah.
no, I
The
don't
fear,
know.
the fear of unknown.
Fear of unknown.
I wanted to, when we started talking about anxiety, and I immediately visualized, I don't know, for me, if you ask me what anxiety looks like for me, it's the huge emptiness. It's the disconnection between me, between like me, like real me, like the authentic me. It's a
Okay.
huge gap. And what I've learned also that's interesting in yoga, I really dive deep into the mind body connection. So there is such thing. It's scientifically proved already in physiology. There is a interoception. So interoception is the function of our bodies, and it's the communication of the internal organs to our mind, basically. So our body is sending us the signs and everything all the time. We ignore a lot. Well, when you practice yoga, the interoception develops so strongly and so much that you can't ignore your body anymore. And you subconsciously even, you receive those signals via the nervous system, via the receptors of the nervous system. So to your brain, to your mind. So you can be aware of what's coming, what's going to happen to your body, just because the diseases, the anxieties, it's only a result of what's been going on in you for a long time. And your body actually is warning you, so you can now and I started actually, and I noticed that that disconnection. So for me, like I said, it's a huge gap. So it's getting like smaller and
Closing
smaller.
the gap between,
Yeah, just because I'm not afraid to connect to myself anymore, and I know how to, and I feel my body now, and it's amazing, Bethany, when you were referring like, oh, no, you would be surprised that people cannot feel their like pinky toe or like some parts of the body.
they're not.
Yeah, and we are like those. I don't know, like in some wizards, I can feel any part of my body. And what I started practicing recently is even the old time trauma, you can work on that and name the emotions and go back, name the emotions, but you can also feel in what part of your body that trauma stuck.
Yeah.
So you can breathe, you can use pranayama,
Yeah.
I just
use yoga asana.
breath because she is so speaking the truth of that. Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's very challenging to go in there and to really feel yourself and face what's going on, but
And
it's so worth it because you become connected.
Yes,
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Many people, they don't feel anything, like
Yeah.
nothing, complete disconnect. And I'm not talking about detachment in a healthy way, talking about like literally not connected. And this was something that I teach always. Why would you, it's like a question for you to answer, but I think that's one of the best ways, for people to figure things out is don't just tell them everything, ask a question. Why wouldn't you trust your own instincts? Why
Yeah.
would you think your body and your mind was betraying you?
I could just go on and
Such a
on
good
about that.
question.
Programming. That is programming.
Sure,
That is
'cause-
societal programming.
Yeah, societal.
We were not taught to trust ourselves. We were not taught to trust our bodies. We were not taught like, and maybe you may have been verbally taught that, but subconsciously. And that gets really interesting with women too,
Yes, it does.
in this patriarchal society we live in.
but it's also the
I mean,
age of intelligence, right? So it's kind of like, oh, you have to be intelligent, especially what you just said, women in society. It's like we always have to prove like, okay, I'm smart enough, so I earned this, I deserve this, I'm smart. Use your brain, don't use your body, or don't use your attractiveness. So there is so much, you know what I mean, like attention to that you're like, okay, so I'm not gonna trust all this never betrays. I know I'm smart, I'm working on that. So I just trust the, the mind that's already programmed. So you can't really trust it.
Well, there's that. So there's the process of going through recognizing what has been conditioned and programmed. and it's
Hmm.
causing, because if you are comfortable, you'll know it.
Yes, you feel it.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bethany, there was a while for like I remember, I don't know, a moment in my life where I was going to Red Hot regularly, and we were consistently, and I don't think it was by chance because we're all mirrors of each other, but consistently speaking about connecting your mind and your body, or sorry, your mind and your heart.
Oh, yeah.
And if the heart doesn't agree with the mind, like it's for a reason.
Yeah.
And your mind could be telling you something all day, like this is correct, I know it's correct, but your heart feels a different way. And what does yoga teach us too? To connect to our intuition, connect to our inner compass, connect to our heart, that gut feeling. And more we practice, at least for me, the more I practice, the stronger that got. And I knew when my heart was on board or when it was not. Like now it's like, it's almost a no brainer. I'm like, I'm either in or I'm out. Right. But when the two are connected, like you just, I mean, um, and that's another way I think to cope with anxiety, right? Is my heart and my gut and my inner compass on board, or can I tell that my mind is free? Is my mind creating the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
And do
agree.
I
I never
really deep down believe that?
I never really thought of it, any of that, prior prior to really practicing and studying the yoga and learning that I'm a peacemaker type personality and an empath, and so therefore always drawn in a million other directions, more concerned about everyone else than myself, of my own heart or my own feelings or any of it. And that brings on the anxiety because you can never please enough
Hmm.
people. And so just recognizing when I'm feeling the anxiety or when I'm doing things like gripping, I'm a big gripper, I'm like squeezing my hands, or I recognize that I'm holding my breath, in a meeting or something. And so now I can recognize those things and focus inward and focus on the breath and just really think about becoming stronger. In business, I'm in physical security, access control, and and constantly talking about security in buildings, right? So protecting people, property, and we don't think about protecting ourselves, right? So applying those same things that you would to your home or your business. Who are you keeping in or out? What are you trying to protect, right? So
Hmm.
protecting the thoughts that are in your head, what's authentic, what are your intentions, what does your heart need, and then making yourself stronger, feeling that mula bandha was like so amazing for me, just being able to feel that little bit of strength when I need it is so really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I touch on that just for a second. So I love the analogy, right, of comparing taking care of yourself to how we really focus on taking care of things that are outside of ourselves all of the time. I think that's definitely, it's a human quality. It's definitely probably very prominent in women, as far as protecting our children, taking care of things in the house, and making sure that we, are doing it all, and then doing it all well. And we've tried to protect all of those things. Meanwhile, we leave ourselves, out in the cold, not taking care of, what we need. And that causes a great deal of anxiety and is not fulfilling at all. So it's like prioritize what needs to be done first. And what yoga teaches you, and this is very hard for people at first, it was for me, is take care of yourself.
Hmm.
Take care of yourself first. And then, everybody always uses the thing like you're on the airplane and it's like, yeah, you put the mask on yourself before. But the point is that you really do, in fact,
Yeah.
need to take care of yourself, because otherwise you're
Hmm.
going to be completely depleted. You're going
Depleted.
to just
Yeah.
fall apart, you know?
Yep. Like when I first started to really start to love this practice, and again at Red Hot, when I really started to understand the implications it was having on my life and my everything about what I was doing, I had to cut out things so that I could keep practicing and get
Yes.
better at it. I couldn't drink as much. I couldn't eat as much red meat. Like there were things I had to stop doing as much, like staying out late because I know I need a lot of sleep. And I noticed that when I didn't get a lot of sleep, my practice didn't feel as good. So it's interesting how I look back on it, reflect on it once in a while, and I really cut out a lot of unhealthy things and habits in my life so that I could feel better while I was doing yoga. And then more of the benefits, I started to receive more of the benefits from yoga. Right. And so therein lies the healthy cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
I
add
cut
on to
out
that.
people. I cut out people. So not
I was about
so
to say the
let
same
alone
thing.
right.
Yeah.
I cut out a lot of people.
People.
Mhm.
Right.
I do that today. So
Me
Yeah.
too. Oh yeah.
Identifying the triggers, the anxiety triggers, right? And some of it was for me was people.
Yeah.
And I knew that because it was, because some people around you are also responsible for that programming. Those little voices in your head are telling you these stories, these make-believe stories about yourself or whatever the case may be. I know that was some of my anxiety. And that kind of fed my fear of the future, of the uncertainty. It was, just these little voices. I had to cut those people out. And that was and challenging.
Yeah.
So like listening to Adriana cut out things and people.
And people, and I mastered this skill so much now. Before I would feel there would be like some kind of process you would go through, like, okay, so I can't, maybe I need to help, now I'm like,
Nope.
amputating, like
Done.
like a surgeon.
It's about like feeling your own energy and not
Yes.
stepping into somebody else's, right? Like
Yes.
you're your own.
Start to identify when someone is draining you,
Oh yeah.
right? When you can feel someone literally draining your energy. And that doesn't happen overnight.
Right, and you
Being able
prioritize yourself.
Mhm.
And that is one of the most, I think that's one of the things that takes the most time, is to realize what that actually means. Because
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be, this is so important. It's not against someone or something
No.
else.
No.
Okay?
About you.
It's for you.
It's for
About
you.
you.
Yeah.
It's what does not resonate with you. Then you start
Yeah.
spending so much energy on that. And then you're like, man, I don't need to do that. I just cut it out. That's it. It's
Right.
not my, it's not my even, I don't have to go in there.
It's not your stuff.
Exactly. It's not my stuff. I just,
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's so interesting. I do want to talk about Mula Bandha real quick, because Liz had brought that up before, and I just don't want to forget, because one of the things that I want to make sure of too is that anyone who is listening doesn't feel like, what are these terms? I don't get it.
Yeah.
That okay. So Mula Bandha, there's 3 locks. They are they're physical in the body. They're not, not like a lock and key, but they're places where you bring your energy in and you hold on to your energy within your body and your mind. And you can use your breath, obviously, to move energy anywhere you want to. But one of the key things in yoga is that you harness your energy within yourself so that you don't get depleted. And the idea, obviously, is that you have energy for you. And so you don't expend energy unnecessarily, but you also learn how to utilize the energy that you have within you by constricting in certain areas and holding that or harnessing that area, an actual area. And so the Mula Bandha lock is from the pelvic floor up through the navel. And it's one of the most difficult places to actually engage. Talk about areas that are numb or, not awake. That is one of the most, underutilized locks. People can, there's 2 others, right? There's one underneath your rib cage. It's Uddiyana Bandha. So you have Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, and then you have Jalandhara Bandha, which is the throat lock. Okay. And so we'll probably do an entire thing talking about all of how you do that. But Liz, when you said that you found Mula Bandha and that made a big difference for you, will you expand just a little bit, if you don't mind, like on what that did for you?
Just rather than feeling overwhelmed, or like holding my hands like this under the table when I'm in a meeting and just, you know, looking comfortable, but squeezing my hands really tight and no one could see. Um, and holding my breath, to just breathing, releasing the grip, tightening my lower abdomen, and just let your shoulders relax and just be. Just breathe. Just focus on the present and not all the hypotheticals that we talked about. And it helps bring everything back in for me than feeling like I'm going in 1,000 directions. Right?
I love it.
Yeah.
And so this is very important also. So harnessing, right? Bringing everything in, compacting.
Mhm.
And so you are your own universe. You have everything going on within you. You have
Yeah.
your life force, you have energy, everything you need is within you, and you're not spread out all over the place. So I love the
Mhm.
concept of multitasking, not at all. Like in yoga, it's do one thing
One
at a
thing.
time and do it well. Now,
Mhm.
this gets interesting because the body can actually do multiple things at the same time. You can actually decide to do multiple things. Obviously, the body is functioning, your heart is beating, and you breathe even when you're sleeping and stuff like that. But you can actually engage your arms, your low belly, and your legs all at the same time. Whereas the brain can only think one thing at a time, right? You can only say one word at a time, you can only have one thought at a time. And yet we're so invested in the mind, People are all about being in their heads. When in actuality, I love that she's like, Mulabanda connected me essentially to who I am within myself. I am a force and I have everything I need.
It's grounding.
Relax my shoulders. I can engage my low belly.
Mhm.
I can take some deep breaths. I can do all of this while I'm in a meeting, and it doesn't matter what anyone else is thinking about me or otherwise. We become very focused on our own self control because that's all we have. We can only control what we think and what we do.
Mhm.
We do not have control over anything else.
Yep.
Mm-mm. That was, I mean, Bethany probably heard me tell the story like 100 times, but
But
before I taught my, but yeah, exactly. But before, I like to forget that we're recording this. Um, Before I taught my very first yoga class at Red Hot Yoga, Sarah Tracy was also teaching a class next to me. And I was nervous. I was really nervous. I had never done this before. I'd never taught a class by myself without Bethany there or any of the other instructors. And I remember looking, and she was so grounding in her own right. But I looked at her and I said, "Do you have any advice before I go into this class?" And she said, "Mulabanda."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Okay, okay." And then I like it totally grounded me and put me in my body, and I taught the hell out of that class. Sorry.
You need to
Um,
say that.
I did, and I taught it good. And like, it's just that's a tool. Like, talk about you need a tool to help you cope with anxiety. You understand the concept of Mulabandha and how
Yeah.
you can harness that energy and how it can help you ground into who you are and your authenticity. Yes, it's a really powerful tool.
I think that's what we essentially are doing on the mat. So we practicing, and then we apply it all to real life just to be able to kind of experience the same moments that we have on the mat. We want to extend it. We want to extend to the life. I want to spread it on everyone in my house. I'm like, okay, kids are meditating with me. They know pranayama. They know mula bandha. Like it's all good. So we want to extend it. So we practice, and then even automatically, we engage mula bandha. We
Mhm.
breathe like into the area that we feel, emotions stuck, and I mean all those tools they applicable
Hmm.
in life. So it's not like
Yes.
when people say, "Oh, yoga for some," it's for enlightened. No, it's for people that struggle in life.
It's
You
for
need
people.
to study.
It's
For people, yeah.
yeah,
For
it's
people.
for anyone, you know.
Hmm.
And the practice aspect of it is, what ultimately helps you to engage without even having to think about it anymore. It becomes you. You become it. They're
Mm-hmm.
one and the same, which takes us to another aspect of, the teachings of yoga is that everything is everything else. And
Yeah.
so when you practice, it's not like, it's so funny when folks think, oh, this person's better at it than I am, or, whatever. If you practice, it will become you and you will become it. And for everyone, that path is different.
Mm-hmm.
So the 8-limbed path is the same. Okay, that's offered to everyone. So there's the 8 limbs of yoga. But how people get there and how they utilize each limb, and the combination of what one's when, that varies, as much as people's life experiences vary. So there is no way to compare one person to another and where they're at in their practice. Once you've been teaching long enough, you're able to look at someone, and I can pretty much at this point look at someone and I can tell you pretty much to the month how long they've been practicing yoga. And it's really wonderful to have that experience, because it's an advantage in life, because you will be talking to someone, let's say, about whatever it is at the grocery store, and you start talk about extending it into regular life. You can tell this person has children, this person has
Mm-hmm.
worked many jobs, this person knows about whatever, and you can feel it off of them. You can see it in the way that they talk, in the way that they position their body, in the way that they feel energetically, in the way that they are composed or not. You start to get
Mm-hmm.
the universe sort of
Okay.
opens up to you.
Yeah.
Do you think
I
that
so,
you
yeah,
can go?
just sorry, Adriana, just quick
No, that's okay.
before we forget. It's amazing because I recently I started thinking like, oh, I even started telling people like, but you need to notice something in like ordinary person. You think it's ordinary person, but there is so much in some people. And then I was like, why lately I've been meeting so many people that are so special. They have so much in them that just because I think I trained that ability to, what you just said, like to see that in people, like to sense it, to feel it, to resonate with
Mm-hmm.
that, and then you stop.
Awareness.
Hmm?
You're aware.
You're
Oh,
aware.
Yeah.
You're aware. You're not just like and programming just kind of backs up, because you're like, oh, okay, so wait a minute, there is something that resonates with me, and you start conversation, and then you're like, oh wow. Before I would have just passed by.
right. What were you going to say, Adriana?
I was gonna say, do you think that it has to do with when you've been practicing yoga for a while and you practice teaching yoga for a while? I think your connection to source gets deeper. Your connection to your higher self, your connection to source, to the divine, it does get deeper. And with that comes more awareness. And with that comes the ability to more often recognize the beauty and also on the flip side, right? The
Oh, yeah.
implications of some of the hardships that folks have had to go through. So you just become more empathic. Like Elizabeth, you mentioned you were empathic. I think that the more we practice and the more we alchemize with our own selves, the more we connect to our own selves, essentially to source, right? We start to recognize these things more.
Right.
It becomes really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
it absolutely does, and that's what I was saying earlier. Everything is everything else. It becomes
Yeah.
so. Yogic teaching says that essentially we're all here, and everyone is completely interconnected with everyone and everything else that's in the universe. That
Hmm.
we're all made of the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, it's a little bit disappointing. First, it's overwhelming. Then it's disappointing. Like, I'm not connected to that person or that thing, that I don't like, or
Yes.
that does
Hmm.
bad things. That's not me. I'm not like that. One of the best ways that you can actually reduce your anxiety is accepting the fact that you
Yeah.
and everyone and everything else on
Mhm.
this planet and in this universe is part of each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're no better, no worse.
Yes.
But I
And
said
I-
that
Yes.
Better for worse.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I thought acceptance is the key word, because that's what I wanted to add when Adriana was telling about, connecting to divine and, your higher self. But I think with that, so you see the beauty, the hardship and all that. But I think with that comes a simple acceptance of people's like
Yes.
everything, not not only beauty, but the stuff that annoyed hell out of you. I'm sorry. Before, now you like,
this is such
I
a funny
know.
thing. Okay, so people are like, "Oh, you practice yoga. You must be like nice all the time. Everything must be so chill. You're
Girlfriend.
so okay." So, yeah. So
That changed real fast for me.
let's talk about one of the best ways also that you can alleviate your anxiety.
Saying
Stop
no.
worrying what everyone else thinks and say whatever you want to say. And if you're angry, be angry. And if somebody is rude to you, be like, "You're rude." And if something
That's
goes
the
wrong,
truth.
just go, "It went
Mhm.
wrong." Or if you're like,
Yeah.
"I'm losing my mind right now, like I'm acting really badly," just be like, "I'm acting really
Yeah.
badly."
Yeah, and that's extremely powerful to be
Cool.
able to, like, if you have to show up for a job, depending on, you might
Uh,
come in many interactions with many different people, and if you know that you aren't in a position to show up properly for all those other people that you might be supporting, it could be a really big deal. Like, it's really important that you speak up and you say, it's not a good day. I'm not in the place
Yeah.
to support other people, right? Like, if you're a psychologist or a therapist in that realm, like, this isn't a good day. I am not going to be able to show up as my full self to support this person, which could
Yeah.
have serious implications on that person's well-being. So
Yeah, and warn people. And I even, in my Russian Instagram, exactly.
yeah,
I have
warning.
to warn people. I have to warn people. So in my Russian speaking Instagram, I even have a post about the myth, the yoga myth. And actually this like, oh, you always chill is one of the like big myths. So, and I explained it like, we practice yoga not feel anything, but the opposite.
Feel everything.
Embrace, acknowledge, and feeling full. Like you feel it.
Yeah, I would actually say, like, I think I'm probably because Bethany, probably seen a lot of this transformation in me. I come from people pleasing. Like, I
Yes,
was
same.
that added to my anxiety. That was
Mm-hmm.
added to my anxiety because you can't please everybody. Like, I can't show up for everybody else, and I'm not even showing up for myself. I mean, that's just
Jamila, what's your Enneagram type?
7.
You're 7. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a 7.
I know, Vicky, you're an 8. Elizabeth, you're a 9, which I'm feeling really strongly, and I think it's beautiful. Bethany's also an 8.
Yeah.
Yes,
But-
we had to
but
make sure, like, when we get together, we don't overbear with the 8s. We gotta.
I know, right?
Well, that's what I was
Bad-
I was going to ask you, B.
You can't do that to people.
Do you think that the freedom thing, and you totally don't have to answer this if you're uncomfortable answering it, please, but do you think that the freedom aspect and the anxiety stems from that being an 8?
Absolutely.
Or do you think?
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Because that's what I was feeling.
All
I was
my life
feeling that.
Yeah.
All my life I've been convinced that I'm by myself. I have to protect myself. If I fall, no one's gonna help me. If I depend on someone, it's a death of me. I need to work hard just to be able to be independent. If I have 5 kids, I have to make sure I can provide for all of them, because God knows what can happen. I can't depend on anyone or anything.
And what's so funny is my anxiety is the opposite of that. It's the
I was gonna say,
"Who's gonna like me? I want to."
I was gonna say things like
it was like very external, like everybody. And for me, the freedom came when I was just like, I'm going to live my life. I don't want to pretend. The mat, when I'm on and that's a part of coming to yoga. I realized that I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to pretend.
Same, girlfriend.
Pretending. And so I was the opposite. Like, Bethany, the 8, you guys are like, I gotta fend for myself. I gotta do it. And I was like completely opposite. I was like,
Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I would get like, I don't know if you can relate to this at all, Jamila, and maybe a little bit you can too, but the like having to say no to people or like having to like
Horrible.
cancel on like a
Horrible.
plan or something like that would
Horrible.
give me, because I think that is like the people pleasing in me too. That's just sort of ingrained in.
I
Yeah.
would do the
I don't know.
opposite.
That was just part of my.
You
I
know,
had to do a lot of deprogramming.
What's funny is it's the
just
same
going with the
thing
flow and then not
that
speaking
causes.
up.
Go ahead, Liz.
I was just going to say, or just going with the flow and not speaking up about,
Yeah.
what your own thoughts. So that was.
And so what's so interesting is that the way we perceive the same thing is different. I perceive it as, are you infringing on my freedom? And get out of my way, I'll do it myself, just like Vika does. And then, you're saying, Jamila, you're like, oh, I want them to like me, but it's causing you stress. And so I look at it as somebody infringing on my space and my freedom. You look at it as like, I hope I can do it. It's causing you anxiety. And then, but ultimately what it comes down to is that we all make the same decision where we're like, we're not doing this.
Freedom.
It causes us to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
But I think now I can recognize what makes me uncomfortable or, what it is. And then just as we make modifications for any, physical limitations we might impose, then we can make personal modifications as well, right?
Mhm.
Towards
Yes.
who we expose ourselves to or what we expose ourselves to or how much
Mhm.
access they have to us, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I can definitely say that I have to like calm down. So I can't look at everything that anyone asks as something that's infringing upon me. I have to, I can. But isn't it interesting that it causes anxiety?
That's a lot of work to. Oh no, that,
It,
mhm.
it causes
Yeah.
you to be
You
anxious.
drain yourself by thinking that, by defending yourself when it's not necessary at all. Nobody's attacking you. Nobody's trying to.
But therein lies the mindfulness, right? It's like if we can be mindful of what's happening when it's happening, it's like, oh, okay, that's just my thing. But I don't actually, that actually might not be the case. Someone might not actually be infringing on my space
Yeah.
or my time. I'm just, that's my monkey. I don't, that's like
But I
the
still need to do
anxiety
that.
stepping in.
Yeah, but I still need to do that work. Even now, it doesn't happen automatically just because of my personality. But I immediately recognize it immediately, and I'm like, okay, so let's think. Again, did he want to offend me, or did she want to? She probably has no idea that she said something that. So I think it's just a process, and for someone it happens organically. For some, like me, I have to work on that. I have to go through those steps.
Do
I
you?
think we all do.
Would you? Yeah, I think that we all have to work on it from different directions. But I have experienced in a very profound way over many years that the more that I connect and the more with people, the more that I accept them for who they are and myself for who I am, the easier and less anxious I become in all of my interactions with folks, in all of the projects that I want to, work on. Like it's very difficult, for example, to ask for help or to, some people are very good at asking for help, right? Other people would never ask for help, So something that would make me anxious would be being vulnerable to saying, hey, I need something. And somebody saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay. I had to learn, like, that's okay. I can deal with that. Like, you learn what you're made of, but it takes a lot because it's very easy if you have a really strong or opinionated personality. It's very easy to just become dominant. That doesn't make you feel less anxious. In fact, you don't like yourself when you act like that because you know that it's like a facade for how you really feel, which is, I need help with something.
Yeah. that reminds me of like a lot of times you see this in relationships with people where they completely close themselves off to love because they've been hurt,
Absolutely.
right? And
Or
it's like,
trust.
I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to love you because I was either hurt by my parent or I was hurt by someone I was in a relationship with. And so therefore I'm not letting anyone else in. And what that does is it essentially makes it the other person's problem when in fact it's not their problem, it's your problem. And it's like, if you're not going to open yourself up to love and essentially love yourself, how can you expect to have any type of healthy and loving relationship? Because you're completely closing yourself off. We've all been hurt. We've all been burned. Everyone's been burned. They tell you they haven't, they're lying. And it's a choice to, it is a very, I think a very wise and like a profound choice to say, I'm going to open myself up again to this. And essentially what that is it's taking care of yourself and choosing to put yourself first. And when you do that, then you can open, I mean, your whole world will open up.
Your whole world opens up and you do see more, like what we were talking about earlier, and we are more accepting of where we're at, and we know where we're at, and but it's conscious work. So I noticed that the things that make me the most anxious now are when I make a decision to like kick back and not focus on staying present.
Mm-hmm. Get
There'll
too
be like,
comfortable.
yeah, like there's mundane stuff that's happening, like, oh, I'm gonna make dinner, and so I just kind of like check out, and then the mind will start to drift, and
Yeah.
that's when that programming comes back in. So one of the things that I would recommend for sure is that you are mindful in your most
Mundane.
boring daily things.
Yeah.
Like
You
that's one of
always
the
teach
things
us
that
that.
help me the most, and I notice that things go wrong for me when I just, say, "I'm not doing this for 10 minutes. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be here focusing on everything. I'm just making dinner."
It's
Can
such a big
I get a
one.
break already? That like that thing comes in and tells you like it's okay. You can
And it's
kick
almost like even like little things, like some people struggle with like eating. Like they self-soothe with food, and whatever it might be, anything that
or
you're
not eating.
consuming, right? Or
They
not eating.
yeah.
Exactly. And so it's in those moments in between, or like the more mindful we can become when you go to open the bag or when you go to like pull yourself away from it. Like maybe it's in between a task, maybe it's right when you get home from work, wherever it might be. But I love the mundane thing. You always remind us of that. And it's so helpful just to
And it's
stay
hard.
present in
And it's
like the
Very
walking the
challenging,
dog.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
challenging. Yeah.
And it's the
Because
hardest because we sometimes use those mundane, the task and everything to drift away, to like automatically do and like, okay, that's the time to like whatever, you drift in. You're like, okay, I can just, give into that, programming or whatever you are holding because you're constantly working. For me, it's like a work, hard work. I work on myself mindfully, consciously, bringing myself, you know what I mean, like to shape, but to like, okay, I need to be here. I need to connect to myself. So every time I'm kind of out of resources, I'm kind of drained or something. That's when I know my mind drifts towards the programming and the old stuff. It's like the old known one, it's like, okay, I can finally.
I actually love that you just brought this up because one of the things that happens, and there's many, many, many layers to all of this stuff, okay? But don't get don't get overwhelmed with it. Just start where you're at, right? So um, you'll notice that you're tired, and so you kind of check out, and then you have to actually say to yourself, "I'm tired." And I feel guilty because I'm tired because I didn't do
Mhm.
my checklist of things that I was supposed to do that was expected by society today. And you start to realize that you're living your life in a way that you don't actually want to live your life. And then it starts getting like, this big, big, big picture in front of you of what am I doing? You know, can I go to bed at 9 o'clock? Like, is that possible? And the reality is, most of the time, the answer is yes. You could.
Mm-hmm.
and you could get, however many hours sleep that you needed. Or let's say you wake up in the middle of the night. You could just wake up in the middle of the night. You could go, make coffee or have juice or do nothing, just sit there and think.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And it's like, no, 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 wait. There's no societal instruction for this aspect of my life. So I feel completely out of control. I don't know what to do. And I want somebody else to tell me that I'm okay. And the reality is that no one else is going to tell you that you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
You need to learn to trust yourself that you're okay. If you're up in the middle of the night and you just want to sit on the couch and stare at the wall, it's okay.
Yeah. And I think there's another thing in there too, Bethany, our yoga practice and meditation teaches us to look at our thoughts, right? To recognize our thoughts and to really to look at them as they're coming up. And so when a thought like, can I go to bed at 9 p.m. comes up, it's like, yeah, I can go to bed at 9 p.m. Or we start thinking about the to-do list, or like, I'm going to sit here and watch Netflix for an hour, right? Like, is that okay? Should I feel guilty about it? Whatever. Like, really look at those thoughts. Like, no, I want to do that, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
and I'm not
not
feel guilty about it.
Yes. And then you start going, what am I comparing this to anyway?
Really start to look at things.
Where did that rule come from?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I think this is weird? I don't really know what this is.
Yeah.
But I'm here, so I might as well look into it. Look into yourself. So this starts to get a little bit more advanced, admittedly. Like, I recognize that. So this might be a little out there for folks, as they're like, are you actually admitting that you sit up in the middle of the night and stare at the wall?
And drink juice.
Sometimes. Sure. So?
Yeah.
I'm a human being. I'm assuming other human beings do this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no way that they don't. And I don't wonder that anymore. And even if it's not exactly the way that I do it or the way that I'm saying it, I don't worry about that either. Because I don't wonder whether or not I'm not the way I'm supposed to be. And that, when I say it's more advanced, that takes a great deal of time and practice to really understand. And that's why I want to mention it. You're who you are, and you're supposed to be how you are, and just accept yourself as you are, and keep investing in who you are.
Amen. So I would also add, so with me, I'm deep into my practice, but I'm still learning about myself, and I'm still growing. For me, how I tap into, you are who you are. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You are present. So I focus on like grounding poses. So for me, it's Malasana, like just sitting in Malasana. I will sit in Malasana. I will sit
squat for
yogi squat. So that's the yogi squat. I will sit in Malasana and then child's pose, where I really focus on those palms on the mat, that I feel that connection with the earth. And that's almost like that tells me you're safe, you're secure,
You're here.
You're here. You are who you are. You don't need to pretend. Like, that's my moment. That's my tool. And then also,
I love that.
This has helped me recently as I kind of dive more into my meditation practice, which I never really had a strong meditation practice.
It takes a long time, in my opinion, for people to
actually
meditate.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning. So I'm learning. So the writing down. So when I feel that, like for example, the mundane task, let's say you're cooking, and if I feel a little bubble or a little something of anxiety, what is that? I have this book and I carry it like everywhere. We talk about I'll just share, like, it's actually a journal, but the front of the journal is the curse word sort of bleeped out. It's for anxiety. Like, it's perfect. It's a journal. And so I'll just kind of write a little note of, what was that? Why was that?
Yeah.
Right. Because your body and your mind are actually always talking to you. Always.
Yeah.
telling
I
you.
wanted to bring this up, but I don't think there's time, is the dream aspect of this. Yoga also teaches us to be conscious of our dreams, and this could be another podcast episode.
It can, and
But
I want
there,
I would
but
love to
there
see
is
that one.
so much
Yes.
that goes in there. And I think anxiety can come a lot from that, because that is your subconscious, that is your shadow, that is essentially, I mean, subconscious, a lot of shadow is in there too, right? But
oh my God, I'm so glad.
a lot of that is like the stuff that we haven't tapped into yet is making us anxious, and our dreams are bringing that up. So how can we delve into that deeper, right? How can we delve into the subconscious and really bring up some of that stuff?
Yeah. And also explanations, the scary stuff about the dreams. It's the phase of the rapid eye movement. It's the detox of your, nervous system, and your detox of the emotions and stress that you haven't processed during the day. At night, you are.
Or in another lifetime.
Well, it's also it's considered another state in yoga. So it is part of you have dreamless sleep is actually a way of being. It's not like, what that always cracks me up, that people are so afraid of everything, right? But then we just go to sleep. It's like,
or we knock ourselves out with like a
and then we dream
pill or something.
We go to sleep and then we dream. So my dreams are crazy.
Yeah. Last night, I had a breakthrough dream last night, and it was.
Did you?
It was.
I love when that happens.
It was so great, and it was all about compassion. It was all about like the actual true meaning of compassion, and I oftentimes feel
so
things
beautiful
in my dreams that I just essentially don't have the courage to, I think, in my waking life. And it was profound. I've woken up before laughing. I've woken up before crying my eyes out. So there's
have to.
This morning I woke up, it was last night, I woke up smiling. It was that was really lucky, wasn't it?
So cool.
Yeah. And I had a nightmare last night. So it's like, I'd love to do like that'd be.
We could talk about the dream thing,
into
like
the dreams, and
that would be definitely, because we have the first 6 planned out, and then we're off and running. And I'm sure look at all the stuff that's come up.
We need to do the dream. Yeah, we need to.
I'm sure as you
and also, I'm applying a lot from what I learned about the dreaming and detox and how our mind deals with it. I'm applying to kids, but they're having nightmares. They're at the age where so I can explain it to them and kind of like, and also decode them, like understand what are the fears and anxiety, and
you can help them cope. Yeah.
Right. And let's say this. We'll kind of wrap it up with this. Yoga also is about integration. So why would you think that, the things that you dream about would not be an aspect that you need to include in your being? Right? It gets sort of like pushed to the side, like, that was just a dream, or it's not like that. It's actually a very important aspect.
Yeah.
Of who you are. Interpreting them gets a little bit, interesting.
But our subconscious is a big part of who we are.
Absolutely.
Something you carry with you every day. Just as much as you carry your arm with you. Yeah.
It's still part of us. Our dreams, it's not like it's something disintegrated. Someone brought it into our dream. No, it's awesome. So what we're going to do now is just share a final thought as we sign off on this subject of anxiety and how we deal with it through our yoga, by telling the truth and facing reality and being in the present moment. What are your thoughts, ladies?
I think the first thing, the most impactful thing for me in dealing with anxiety and using my yoga practice to help with that is to do everything I can while I'm experiencing anxiety to stay inside my body and to become present and to try and stay mindful of the truth and what's actually going on. And I can use my body as a tool to help accomplish that. That's my final thought.
I think you shared this was the body craves movement and the mind craves stillness. And too many times I find myself doing the opposite, sitting still and my mind moving around too much. And so that's what I love about yoga is I can free my mind through moving my body.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, like I said, during our conversation, so the anxiety for me is that gap, between true me and all the whatever was built up. So essentially, it's the, making that gap smaller and smaller and integrating and connecting. And, it's the, like coming together, right? So the yoga,
Absolutely.
yoga.
It's called
So,
samapati.
yeah.
When
So,
everything falls together.
exactly. So for me, it's that, it's the connecting to the source of my truth, to, connecting to myself, and then the anxiety and fear just falls away. So you don't have that.
My biggest thought I would want to leave anyone watching this is don't run from it. And that's so hard. So running from anxiety can essentially build up to a panic attack. And it's so hard to face, but being present, which has been a common theme, and really facing that anxiety and getting to the root of what that anxiety could be. And a couple of techniques that I personally use to do that is through my physical yoga practice, practicing grounding techniques, grounding poses, and then also through my self-study and then also my meditation. And that allows it helps me practice being present. So those are my biggest, thoughts I would want to leave with someone.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that trusting yourself, that everything that is within you is supposed to be there. And some of the things that you will think and feel will not necessarily be accurate. You have to examine where those things are coming from. And you will find that source. Then you can relax with what is, and then you will be able to see a clearer picture as to what it is you want to do or not do. So I think that the most important thing is to trust that you can take the time to relax into whatever is going on so that you can get an accurate picture of where you're at, who you really are, what you genuinely think. Because, and we'll do an episode on this, but finding that true, authentic voice within you can take some time. And the process of finding that can create anxiety in its own right. But when you are making decisions to go into what's happening in your mind and your body, then you are in control of that. What you'll find, I've found that it's never quite as bad as you thought. In fact, you will more than likely, and I would say probably 99.9% of the time, find out that you're a lot better than you
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's worth it. It's worth
Yes.
it. So
Agreed.
I find that that process has alleviated a great deal of anxiety. Right. Well,
Mhm.
I'm so happy. This was fabulous. How are you guys feeling?
I
Wonderful.
love it. I feel like we could probably
It's so
talk for
fun.
another few hours. Like we could probably
Yeah.
talk until
Yeah.
midnight. I
I
loved
love
it.
it.
It's
Love
just
it.
such a treat. Really treat it.